are talking to Anne Jessopp, who is the CEO of the Royal Mint. So if you have joined one of our WiST events before, welcome back. But Technocamps, as we've seen from the slides, is a multifaceted project. So we call, I always say schools outreach. So we do a lot of work in schools to promote computing, computer science and STEM subjects. But then we also work with teachers, we work with industry, just basically upskilling the Welsh nation in digital skills, programming, computer science, and all the STEM sort of subjects related to that. And our WiST network, our Women in Science and Tech, is to bring together women with an interest in technology or who work in the technology sector to improve networks. So networking is really important. Who we know can help us in our sort of careers where we want to go. And we do a similar thing for our girls as well that we work with at school level with GIST. So we've got a Girls into Science and Tech program that we run. So networking is really important for us to support women supporting women and having role models there for women in STEM and tech. Today I'm quite excited by our guest. Anne is currently the CEO of the Royal Mint, which she became in 2018. She is the first woman to hold this position in the history of the organisation, which is over 1,000 years old. Joined the Royal Mint in 2008, so has obviously worked in the organisation for a number of years. So the Royal Mint, I know the Royal Mint prints and makes our money. So, but I know that through Anne's career at the Royal Mint, she has sort of helped reinvent the business, diversify the business. So they do a lot more than just printing our money now. So I'm sure we're going to find out a bit about that. And she was in the video and all the publicity about opening of the visitors centre as well, which is obviously local to us in Wales in Llantrisant, which opened in 2016. And I'm still yet to visit, so I'd like to visit the visitors centre as well. So I'm sure she would encourage us to visit to find out more about the organisation. So I'm going to hand over to Anne.
Well, still good morning, everyone, and thanks for inviting me to join you today. I'm really privileged to share my experience of becoming the Chief Exec with such an interesting group of people. Today I'm going to share a story of two transformations, my transformation from HR professional to Chief Exec, and then the transformation of the Royal Mint into a world where people are using cash much less. So I should start by saying how lucky I am to be the CEO of the Royal Mint, and crucially the first, female CEO in the Royal Mint in its 1100 years history. It's such a huge honour. Just absolutely love every day of my job. I didn't take the traditional finance path to becoming a CEO, but as I look back, I think about the skills I've developed have really been the ones that really helped me to do this role and helped me to transform the Royal Mint. They've helped me to make some big and sometimes really difficult decisions, and they've taught me that, you know, experience that you get in lots of different ways is equally valuable. I hope as I talk through my career and how we've transformed the Royal Mint, you'll be able to recognise parallels to your own careers or how you may want your own career to go. Even the most unexpected and challenging points can turn out to be the most valuable. So I always encourage people to just seize opportunities that come their way. I'll start by telling you a little bit about myself and about how I got into my personal reinvention. As I mentioned, I didn't take this stereotypical path to becoming a CEO, but when I look back about my career, I think you know, every element of it has taught me so much. So way back, when you talk about universities, I studied economics at university, and I loved my life there and met some of my lifelong friends. And an in-depth knowledge really wasn't the most important thing I learned. So sorry, anybody who's here from a university. Although I did find myself recently referring to the elasticity of demand curve. I couldn't believe it. I think the most important skills I gained were how to analyse situations, how to think big picture, and importantly, how to work in groups to deliver objectives. On graduating, I joined Rolls-Royce Aero Engines graduate HR scheme, and that was where I first experienced manufacturing. It was a great grounding, but at the time, HR appeared to be really distant from the commercial focus of the organisation. So I decided to move on to Procter & Gamble, and it was there that I really learned the strategic difference that HR can make. Over my next few roles, I gained experience in retail, B2B, B2C, and I was trying to look to gain experience in lots of different sectors. But during that time, when I look back, I've reflected, and I worked for two really great women HR directors who were integral to the business and its senior team. And whilst at the time I didn't realise it, it gave me an expectation of how it could and would be. So that was my expectation when I became a HR director, that actually I would be an integral part of the business. And I think that's why having role models is important, not because people should try to be like the role model, but because it shows what is possible. I think it's really important for us to use role models for the right purpose. Everybody's really different, and inclusivity is really about valuing those differences. And when I share my experience with people, it's an example of what can happen. I'm not suggesting people should do it like me in order to succeed. My advice is that people should be the best versions of themselves. And sometimes I think, you know, when we talk about women, we've changed from you must be like a man to succeed to you must be like this particular successful woman to succeed. I don't think that's true, and it certainly isn't inclusion. I think really important to do it in your own way, but actually to see that it is possible. My focus became working in organisations that had rich history and were undergoing strategic change, where cultural change was a really important element of that strategy. It was during that time that I started to work with strategy facilitators and eventually progressed on to taking that role myself. I'm so pleased that I listened to my internal voice, which was saying, you can do this. It was winning over the internal voice that was saying, you can't do this. And that enabled me to learn an area strategy, which has become one of my core skills. And I think, you know, that wasn't in the traditional role of HR, but it is picking up those opportunities when they arise. A personal family move to Wales meant that I was lucky to join the Royal Mint as HR director in 2008. I was part of the change from the government department, which we were at the time, to become a limited commercial organisation, limited company. Was there that after a few years I started my own Reinvention. The CEO at the time was a great mentor, and he really encouraged me to move into a business role. I was really apprehensive because I loved my HR job, but I eventually agreed to become an MD of the commemorative coin division. But I only agreed to do it on a temporary basis. So I put my feet halfway in, but I absolutely loved the job. But when I reflect on my change experience, I always base my plans on there being broadly two sorts of people in change: away from people and towards people. In change, if you're a towards person, you only can really change if you can really buy into the bright, shiny vision of what the future will look like and what that change will deliver. Whereas if you're an away from person, you only change if the picture is painted of how bad it is to stay in your current situation, or the negative impact of staying where you are. Knowing myself as a towards person, it took me time to accept the role, as I couldn't envisage the vision of how great it would be. And that's where my mentor helped me. I actually asked and we worked on what it would look like. If you want to take a big change in your career, to make a big change, make it easier, my advice is to identify if you're a towards person or an away from person, and focus on that element that will help you make the change. For example, focusing on identifying all the negative elements of not going for a job will really help an away from person tip the balance and apply for that job. So once in the job, I learned that the skills I developed during my career were really transferable, and that as a leader, I didn't need to be an expert at everything and everybody else's job. I think that was a really valuable lesson. And I was really, it's allowed me to take more opportunities. I know that lots of women, and I'm no different, suffer from the imposter syndrome, but I learned that no one was expecting me to be great at, for instance, sales. And the more I asked the salesperson for their views, the more motivated they became. So in 2018, when the chief executive role became vacant, it felt like a natural step, and I was delighted to be appointed as the first female CEO in our 1100-year history. It was a huge step in terms of the organisation and its equality. Because of a set of circumstances, I had a number of real issues to deal with in the first few months, but strangely enough, that did me a favour as I really gained confidence through dealing with them. It did take me a little while to really put both feet into the role, to know that actually now I was the chief exec, and particularly as I was now the boss of some of my colleagues. And I think, you know, sometimes it is about thinking, making sure you're thinking about yourself in that new role, and you are up to doing the role. So my role is a relatively normal chief executive role with all the usual meetings and finance that you'd expect, and marketing and people, but with some really interesting added dimensions. Not am I only the chief exec, but also the deputy master of the mint. The master being the chancellor. In inheriting one of the Royal Mint's ancient titles, I'm honoured to follow in the footsteps of people like Sir Isaac Newton, who led the business in the 17th century. And there's still a number of things I do which are really linked to the history. So with the first female CEO, the press picked up on this. And at first I thought, I want people to know I got it on merit. They wouldn't be drawing attention to the gender of a man who was appointed into the role. But quickly I understood, as I've said before, the benefit a role model can have. And as men and women in STEM areas, I really encourage you to get involved with younger people so they can see the success that you're having. As we look to the future, I'm really proud that my executive team has a 50-50 gender balance, and women are fairly represented at all levels of our business. I firmly believe that in attracting a diverse workforce is an essential part of our reinvention. Ensuring we're an inclusive organisation is a priority for me personally. Recently, we've experienced a more diverse team can really deliver business growth, attracting more and different diverse customers. We're really seeing the benefit of that. The reason for sharing my career path is to really emphasise that there are different roles and different routes to becoming a leader, and all experiences that you gather are equally important. Whilst having a career path mapped out can be really helpful, if it's too rigid, I think it may mean you may miss out on opportunities. I was recently interviewed for an article on why there's a number of CEOs who've now come from HR. And it was a really good question, and it caused me to reflect. And my reflection, may be right, may not be, is that in previous years, an organisation normally did one thing in a market, and they were experts in that market, and really nothing much was happening in their market. They were doing the same thing year after year. But that's not the case now. And so now the world and markets change so quickly, so organisations only can survive by being outward looking and having a senior team who have really diverse skills. And so now I really believe it's the CEO's role to enable all of that team to be empowered and agile and to respond to the change. Of course, there's not only HR people who've got the skills to do that, and that HR isn't the only way you can find those skills, but I really would encourage people to seek roles and development that help them to develop those skills. So that's a potted history of my career, but so much for me. What about the reinvention of the Royal Mint itself? So I expect at least a number of you are thinking about who are the Royal Mint and what has been changing. So for over 1100 years, Royal Mint's been in the business of making money. We're Britain's oldest company and one of the oldest manufacturing companies in the world. We were founded by Alfred the Great in 886 AD to make all the coins for Britain. We were based in the Tower of London for several centuries and moved to Llantrisant, which is just outside Cardiff, over 50 years ago. And all of the Royal Mint is based in Cardiff. Today, we're a limited company, so it's but the Treasury owns all our shares, and we operate as a commercial business with a board making profits. For over 1100 years, our business was pretty steady. We made coins for people to spend. However, as you know, with the rise of digital payments, that people are using cashless. So this meant we really had to reinvent. So 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, making currency was the core of our business and drove our profitability. But we knew that this would change. A whole community has grown up around Llantrisant, and generations of families are working at the Royal Mint, sustaining direct and indirect jobs, both here in Llantrisant and in Wales. And we're far more than an employee for so many people we're in the community. When I took up the post, I was determined that the Royal Mint would not decline on my watch. I owed it to the people who came before us, our team, community, and the people who would join us in the future. And I think my experience of seeing that organisations can change and the role that a good strategy plays gave me confidence to know that it would be possible. Many people have lots of views about what we should do, how we should reinvent. We certainly weren't short of ideas, but I needed to make sure that we focus on the ideas that really mattered. So in 2018, we launched our 3-year strategy with our vision to reinvent the Royal Mint for the 21st century. At that point, we didn't really know what we wanted to be going forward. I always say to people, we were a bit like a teenager. We wanted to decide what career to have when we grew up. So it was easy. It's easy to say to reinvent, but more difficult to do in reality. It was the biggest change in our 1100-year history. And we needed to evolve our business, bringing our people on the journey and changing the public's perception of us. So how did we go about doing that task? Drawing on my experience from my career about change, we really focused on 3 areas. So the first area was our currency business. So we will always retain the ability to make coins for the UK whenever the public needs it. That's our first and foremost purpose, and that's not negotiable. However, in a declining market with people using less coins and overcapacity in the worldwide market, because people are using less coins right around the world, we needed to take action to become more cost effective. We had to make the decision to contract our capacity in line with demand. We worked really hard with all the employees in all that area to do that in a planned manner without any redundancies. I firmly believe that if you involve people in solving a problem, treating people absolutely like adults, then they can think of all the different solutions you may not know of. Our relationship with the union was essential to achieving this. When I joined the Royal Mint, it was in a really adversarial relationship based on winning and losing. But I firmly believe that no one benefits from that type of relationship. And the new union reps are now an integral part of our business planning. And we always work on a premise that we really want to have a win-win situation. Our second priority was to grow our consumer division, and it was apparent pretty early that in order to succeed, we had to grow our consumer-facing businesses, and we needed to start up and grow new businesses in that area. Our commemorative coin business had been established for a number of years, but had been very small, and we offered a range of collectible coins that really were marking royal themes and anniversary. But growing and engaging new generations of collectors was key, and we expanded our range of coins to popular children's characters, and this really started younger people to start collecting coins. And you can see Fionn here, who created the Alice in Wonderland coin for us. We wanted to tap into collectors more broadly, so we did a version of celebrating music legends such as Elton John and David Bowie, as well as popular franchises like including James Bond. And these ranges had multinational appeal and helped us to grow our global business, which has really helped us to grow our business significantly over the last 3 years. And over the last 4 years, the commemorative coin business, for instance, as a measure of its success, has grown from making less than £10 million profit to making more than £20 million profit. So Laura's talking about the Royal Mint experience. So alongside the growth of the commemorative coins, we started and opened up the Royal Mint experience. Previously, if we'd had anybody visiting because they were doing some business with us and we offered a tour, they were always so delighted at jumping at the opportunity. So we decided to build on that quite literally. We created, we invested £9 million on a visitor's experience, and each and every year we attract between 80,000 and 100,000 visitors to our site at Llantrisant. And that's played a significant role in building our brand and allowing us to connect with customers, and people visit here both nationally and internationally. So I would really encourage all of you to come and visit if you haven't, because it's really great. So one of our biggest success stories over the last few years has been the growth of our precious metals investment business, which perfectly aligns to the Royal Mint's precious metals heritage. When we started in 886, coins were made out of precious metals, so it's right and proper that we work in that area. And today we're considered to be the home of precious metals in the UK, offering customers the option to invest in physical precious metal or trade digitally via our website. We've seen particular success in targeting younger investors who are savvy about investments and technology. We've also launched an institutional product, an ETC, if you know about those, which is traded on the London and European stock exchanges. Our third priority was to evaluate and start new ventures, new businesses. There were as I said, there were so many avenues we could have taken as a business. And as CEO, I had to be really careful to consider the impact of what we do next. I felt the real responsibility to protect jobs and our brand every day. And when we looked at new opportunities, we really focused on those that could protect those jobs and also protect our brand. We wanted our new ventures to be aligned to our vision and our brand and provide those jobs, and to be commercially successful, of course. But all of this had to be done in a way which was sustainable, as we're very sensitive to the environment. As the CEO, I believe leading sustainability in an organisation is a really key role now. I knew nothing about it, and I've spent lots of time learning, talking to people about it, and attending many training sessions. And I think that's an example of really, whatever role you're in, you've got to be looking outwards to understand that actually your job requires you to do different things at different times. It's taken a number of years to determine what we should move into in terms of new business, and we've recently announced two really exciting projects, which I really couldn't have imagined 3 years ago. We're building a multi-million-pound plant to recycle electronic waste and recover the precious metals that are in our electronic products, and we'll use them to put into the products that we make. It helps address a major ecological issue and provides a sustainable source of metal to our businesses going forward. I was really surprised to find out that over 7% of the world's gold at any one time is in waste electronics, just sat there in waste electronics doing nothing. So an exciting way we're using this recovered gold will be to create a new jewellery collection launching next week. 886, which I mentioned was the date we were formed by the Royal Mint, combines our heritage of design and craftsmanship with a future forging sustainable metal and beautifully crafted jewellery. I'm off to the Tower of London next week to be part of the launch. The really important element for me in terms of this business, the 886 part of our business, is that we are making this jewellery here in Llantrisant. And at the moment, most of that jewellery for all really well-known brands is actually made overseas, in Thailand in particular, I think. And what it means is that, that's not great for the environment because you have to ship it over. and it's also not great for the development of British craftsmanship. So this is a real focus of how we can help and support British craftsmanship in the UK. And you'll see us doing a lot more, not only making things ourselves, but supporting that industry. So having completed these 3 strategies, we were able to successfully reinvent the Royal Mint. That was a challenge I was given when I became the chief exec, and we've delivered the first stage of that, really embedding the transformation for the future. But in order to do this, we have launched our next stage, which started in April, because actually we did our reinvention in 2 years rather than 3 years. So we launched this April our 5-year plan, and we've got a clear vision for this next part of our 5-year reinvention. And you can see there, it's being famous and trusted as the original maker, making metals precious to our customers. So it's all about precious metals. It's all about focusing on our customers, and that's showcasing British craftsmanship. Over the next 3 years, you'll see our business grow and come to fruition, and we'll continue to change the perception of our brand into a premium British maker, offering collectibles, investment and jewellery made in precious metals. To that end, I sort of reflect on the transformation of the Royal Mint in my own career, and there are a number of key things that I think have been crucial in helping me achieve those. Firstly, it was really important to understand the core values and beliefs held by your employees and amongst your customers. In other words, what's the DNA of your organisation that you're leading and you're working in? I also think it's really important to understand your own values, because if you work for an organisation where their values align with yours, you really can be the best version of yourselves. If you understand this internally about the customers and the employees, you can make it essential to the transformation strategy. It can often help you frame the answer to the common question you'll face, which is, why do we have to change? And understanding the internal and external DNA of your business, you can really make sure you place it at the core of your plans. And in my experience, that makes your reinvention so much easier. Secondly, I believe that it's critical that you have a well thought through and meaningful vision. So we've had 2 visions. Our first one was really think about what we want to be when we stop being a teenager, and this new one is, okay, right, we've grown up and we've now absolutely decided. It's a vision that will provide strong direction for the strategies and plans which fall under it, and can be used to check and challenge any new direction. I'm sure we've all seen organisation where there's a vision that no one ever really refers to or remembers. Often they've got the words in it, world best, to them, and they don't really reflect the tasks that need to be undertaken. I personally like the definition I once found, which says a vision is a dream with a plan. A good vision should enable you to look at it and say, look at a proposal and say yes or no based on whether its ability to help you to achieve the vision. And we certainly use the vision a lot here in the Royal Mint. For me, it's like knocking a nail in at the top of a sheet, and really then saying, how do the strategies achieve that? Strategies may change over time, but absolutely that vision won't change. And thirdly, having the clear strategies, in my experience, is really critical in a successful transformation. Often people get hung up on a strategy being a really difficult and complex academic thing, and they overcomplicate it. But I like the definition by the economist Vint, which says that a strategy is the means of creating a long-term successful plan for the organisation. And having a strategy, a really clear strategy, has really helped us be successful during COVID, because after the first couple of weeks of panic and, oh my goodness, we haven't seen anything like this before, we absolutely went back to our strategies and said, which ones change, which one don't, right, come on, let's carry on. And I think for me, it's really important when you're changing to understand the capabilities you have as an organisation and as an individual, and what additional specific skills that you actually need, particularly when you're entering new markets, or like myself, when I was doing a new job. It's important to be humble, I think, to realise that you're not an expert at everything, and to seek the experience, because that will make you or your business stronger. And I think the ability to say, I'm not going to be an expert at everything, actually makes you successful in your role if you reach out. It's too easy to think you can do everything, and there's real no shame in admitting you can't. It's been the highlight of my career to be the chief exec of the Royal Mint, and often I pinch myself about how lucky I am to have this incredible role and to work with such a passionate team, and to be actually being successful to get the job. Together, we're making history by transforming Britain's oldest original maker into a business with a bright future. So thank you so much for your time. I hope you've learned a little, and I hope you, please don't try to be like me. I hope you've just learned some things that may help you think about the future and be the best person you can be. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I've been nodding away and sort of trying to learn as much as I can from this. It's fantastic. I've jotted down a few questions as well, actually, that popped into my head. One thing you mentioned about the executive team being 50-50 men and women, that is quite a challenge in a lot of companies at high level. So was there a strategy there within the Royal Mint to enable that to happen, or is it kind of just happen naturally? Do you know?
I think we haven't had a purposeful strategy. We have had a strategy to support and mentor people, and particularly not only women, because I think there's different areas of diversity. So I think for me, it probably is also being a bit more open to understanding what support people might need, and understanding that different genders present themselves differently for different roles. So I talked to somebody today who great person who wants to tell me all the things she couldn't do for a new job, whereas often, as we know, men do often say all the things they can do. So I think it's just being really open to really supporting those things.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so a few questions popping in, so I'll move over to them. Okay, so you've talked a lot about role models and you having some female role models in HR particularly, but have you got any role models in your sort of very early career that made you think, oh, okay, this is something that I maybe want to do, or a person who inspired you to do something in your early career?
One of the first, as I said, I got two great role models who were women HRDs, and the first one actually supported me and encouraged me to take on a line management role. I only did it for about 3 months, but as a secondment,
right.
And they couldn't fill in when we couldn't recruit somebody, and I just learned so much in that role. And so much at that time, I don't think I ever thought I'd go into line management, and I don't think that was the purpose. But what it did do would allow me to do my HR role so much better, because I think I really could stand in the shoes of a person who I was given a service to. Because we all think we know what it's like, don't we, for somebody else's shoes, but you don't know what it's like to be in their shoes until you're in their shoes.
Yeah.
So I think that person gave me the support, because that was quite different. I was really young. I was it was something that most young people on here, I sound like an old fogey, but people used to rent out their televisions, and because they used to break down a lot. And so I was in charge of this whole area where there were lots of people mending televisions who were all men, and I was in charge of this this effectively, it was a bit like a manufacturing repair area. Really difficult to do, but I think the fact that somebody had confidence in me and was there supporting me really showed me that actually you can do new and different things.
Sometimes it takes that, doesn't it? It takes someone else's belief in you to push you to go, okay. They're I respect them. They must believe in me.
Not betray me.
Okay. Another question is interesting again about gender, obviously. Have you had any issues being a senior, very senior person in your organisation, the top person in your organisation, being a woman? Have you had anything obvious, a negativity towards that, being a woman, or any challenges that you think maybe a man would not have in that situation? Because, I think they do happen. But whether you've had anything personally.
Don't think I have. I think I've had, it may be a male-female thing. I think I've had people assume that finance people assume that I, wouldn't be as sharp on the finance elements of it. But I can give them a run for their money.
Good.
As our great CFO will tell you, it's his task to try and get there to the great finance question before me. So I think, but whether that was a female, male, or just assuming, you've done people, soft and fluffy type of thing. I don't know. I do think that I went to a session once, and they'd done lots of research on women who do get to be successful. And what they've found out is that the women who get to be successful actually haven't noticed many challenges, which is interesting, isn't it? And so I'm always cautious to think that they must be there, but there's something about the fact that I don't see them.
Don't register it, maybe just push through.
And so I don't want to say, well, they haven't been there. I sort of want to say I haven't noticed them.
Yeah. No, I understand that. Yeah. Interesting to say that you, obviously being the CEO, you can't be an expert at everything. There are so many things you're overseeing. So you mentioned it a little bit, but how do you deal with that if you've got to look at something? How do you deal with not being an expert? What's your process of sort of gaining information and learning about what you need to know?
So I think that one of the things that I work really hard on is that it is my executive team's job to really make most of the decisions. And to know what's going on in their area and to really empower them to do that. But clearly, as a team, we I really focus on what's the strategy. I'll obviously focus on, are we performing in the business? But actually, I have a great team who do that bit. So I'm really focusing on the strategy as well. So what I tend to do is, if we've got an area that we're going to do some work on, is to really talk to people. I might do a bit of research. But I'm always thinking at that strategic level rather than thinking I want to be, because I think once you get into the real detail, then you're second guessing people and you're away from the strategy. So
you need to keep that distance almost.
Yeah.
Or just have a general.
Yeah, so sustainability would be a good example that I really knew nothing about. But what I've been able to do is, and I'm no expert. If somebody wanted an in-depth, detailed conversation, I couldn't have it. I could certainly have a conversation about the concepts and how it might impact work and how different organisations are doing it, and thinking through how we might do it. And I think that enables me to stay more at that strategic level.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, so you don't have to get into the nitty-gritty necessarily. Making big decisions, making those big decisions. You've said that you obviously involve everybody, especially the unions, especially if it's going to involve people's jobs and livelihoods and things.
Yeah.
So what is your process if you're faced with those big challenges you had early on in your position? How do you deal with those big decisions? So how do you break it down? What's the process? I'm interested.
First of all, I've got a really close executive team, and the big decisions, we always talk about it. And you'd normally also find me going to talk to somebody in that area who I thought might have a certain slant on it. Also in the executive team, obviously they all have individual specialisms, but say it was a decision in one area of the business, everybody has a voice in it. So sometimes you can't make the best decision about something that's too close to you. So as a team, we always all have a decision. We if it was a major part of a program, we do have a program approach to it and milestones, etc. But broadly, we would get somebody to present it, we get somebody to review it, and then we as a team would really think about it. And we've got a board who if we had to go to it often, they can give us some specialist advice. So broadly, on the whole, it's not very frequent. I'm making the decision myself.
Yeah.
The one time I did make the decision, I think, totally, well, there must be more than one, and my team will probably tell you that, but is when we had to decide what to do over COVID. And that was really tough because, we had all the message, stay at home, do this, do that, and I had to think about how we'd approach that as an organisation. And there were lots of disparate views, and there was nothing, because sometimes I go and think about, well, I'll go and ask somebody externally who I know has gone through a similar situation or has that, but there was none of that, was there?
No, yeah.
So I had to, and I remember literally saying to myself, because I quite often have an internal conversation, well, you really don't know, you've just got to make your best judgment. And yeah.
Fair enough.
And I think it was the right decision in terms of what we did. But
good, that's good. Okay, so communication is a big thing, sharing ideas with a team, and not just even if you're at the top, it's not sort of necessarily just your choice to make, is it your decision to make?
No, and in fact,
with,
sometimes it's more difficult to, I was saying to a team today, it's more difficult, you think you're right, or I would be the chief exec, right, everything I say goes, actually, because you, in a sense, have to take a step back and let everybody else almost do what they want to do and not disempower them. I actually find it slightly more difficult to do things,
Okay, interesting. Okay, and obviously Technocamps being sort of a technology focused project, within the Royal Mint there must be obviously the use of a lot of technology. What has been your biggest technology challenge, or sort of change, bringing in new technology? What sort of things are involved within the Royal Mint?
So I think our technology strategy, it has been part of our transformation. So we had a strategy and a team who were really previously, because broadly we saw ourselves as a manufacturer before, we didn't particularly go to market digitally. Well, there wasn't digitally, I'm talking about say 10 years ago. And I think we were late to the party in terms of understanding that actually it was critical that we were at least as good as in the market, if not leading some of it. So we had a IT infrastructure which was really based around being good at manufacturing, and of course that's very different than if you have to operate digitally. We had a new ERP system brought in, which I think again was very manufacturing based, and it was a horrendous thing. We decided to go with a big bang, so it took us forever because we were changing constantly, so we were updating. We couldn't go ahead with it because things were updating. So we have really changed, not everybody in our team, we've trained a lot of people in the team, but we have brought in some new people, and really now we're really Actually, what's been interesting, I think, is that we did a bit of a flip-flop. We went, oh my God, we were just a manufacturer, right, let's get all these people in and let's try and be the world's best. And actually, we flipped to do some things which weren't very commercial as well. And we've now sort of moderated and come back and said, really, it's where is it in our organisation, and what role does it have going forward? I think one of our biggest challenges and my constant worry is cyber.
Yeah, security risks.
Absolutely. And we've had to really, enhance our team. We've got a great team. And actually, interestingly, we've got a really good relationship with Cardiff University. And we've taken a couple of their graduates on. And I think that's what we'll do continually as things change. So we are happy to come out and talk to unis about the tech team, come out and talk to unis about that. So yeah,
I might take you up on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've got ideas going like this. Okay, fab. I've got one cheeky question, which was, when you were looking at your reinvention of the Royal Mint, you're saying it was, I can imagine you doing this big brainstorming activity, like what can we do, what can we make, how can we diversify? Was there any ideas that came up that were interesting or a bit mad that you didn't follow through with, but were an interesting idea at the time?
Well, so the maddest thing, I can give you the maddest thing, because so when we started to do our what new businesses shall we be in, the rest of us, and this is a case in point, when I said, don't think you've got all the skills that you need, we all were like, well, we could do this, we could do that, and then we thought, no, we need to get somebody, and we recruited our growth director, and that's his job. So it was his job to come in, to assess what we could be, and then we decided. And he did go wide, and the strangest one was his team had identified we could have a Zipwire over the Bristol Channel.
Wow.
because what they did is they started off from, we're in the Royal Mint experience, we're in tourism, so what does that mean that we could do? But actually, one of the things that quite often comes up, and it shows you how the vision really anchors you in, one of the things that often comes up is people say, well, you could be a bank, why don't you be a bank? And of course that came up, and the reason we aren't a bank is twofold. One, because there's all some financial types of businesses we could have done, is that they would be we make loads of money from it, but they would be based probably in London with 3 or 4 people near the stock exchange, not creating any jobs for us, not really anchored to our vision. So there were some things that we rejected on that basis.
Well, that's nice to know that the values really did hold fast with sort of local regeneration almost, and community in that area.
Yes, it's
fantastic. Okay, thanks. I love the idea of the Zipwire.
I know. Well, I give that too, because perhaps somebody else wants to take that, and I won't charge for it.
Okay. Thanks, but I've really enjoyed today, so thank you so much. Okay. And I think we'll leave it there and let everyone go and get their lunch. So thank you.